Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Abundology podcast. I'm Renee Spears, and I'm here today talking with Sarah Mack. And Sarah is the host of the Creative Magic Club podcast. She's also a writer and a creative business mentor who works with coaches, healers, and artistic entrepreneurs who are ready for six-figure years, more freedom and fun in life and business. And one of the ways that you do that is by using the client's astrological chart, which I think is absolutely brilliant, Sarah. How did this come to you? How did this idea come to you?
Yeah, I ask myself that a lot. I'm like, how, because now I know, I'm sure everyone who's listening will, resonate with how astrology just kind of comes into your world. And then suddenly you're obsessed with it and then you can't get enough of it and it just takes a hold over you. And that's really what happened to me. I ended up signing up for an astrology workshop with an astrology mentor who's now a really good friend of mine. I took her kind of intro to astrology class. And when I was in the class, my mindset was, I'm a complete beginner. I know nothing about astrology. And then in learning, in the lessons, I was like, no, wait, I actually already somehow know a lot about astrology. I think I just picked it up from watching YouTube videos and I wasn't consciously kind of pursuing it as a field of study, but it was definitely something that was on my periphery. And as I started studying my own chart, that obviously, I have a business, I'm an entrepreneur. So naturally, looking at my career and the way that I make money was one of the most interesting aspects of my chart for me. And as I started to dive into more and more different parts of my chart, naturally that just informed my own self-perception. And a big part of being an entrepreneur for me is telling stories. That's how I get my clients, is telling stories on social media. So understanding myself at deeper levels was starting to shift the confidence and the clarity that I had in my storytelling, and was shifting the types of clients that I was attracting. And I really found that I was more living more in alignment and really accepting myself at deeper levels, and really accepting the gifts and that I had, and accepting the challenges that our charts can reveal to us and kind of give us reassurance of like, oh, you're kind of meant to be going through this right now, there's nothing wrong with you. And that really did just seep into the way that I was doing business. And then naturally, I started getting very curious about my clients' charts. And so I started asking all of my clients for their charts, and just found that it was a really powerful tool to help people understand themselves and to, have more self-compassion and have more clarity and confidence about who they were, which is really helpful when you're putting yourself out there and trying to make more money and make a bigger impact and, like have more success in your career.
Yeah, and I think that astrology is just at the very beginning of how we're going to be using it in our society as we evolve. And you're the really one of the first ones that I have talked to that uses it for money making, not for money making, but to help us make money, I'm going to say. And I love what you've said, where it really points out where we're good at something in our charts and some areas that we don't have a lot of planets there. There's not a lot of activity there, but often we beat up on ourselves because we're not good at everything. And hey, if it's not in your chart, what can you do about it?
Totally. And also there's those areas where, you have the challenging planets, or you have oppositions, or like Saturn, and, or Chiron, for example, the wounded healer. And I work with a lot of healers. And so that's a really interesting point for me to look at for them, because I'm like, sometimes our greatest challenges and our deepest wounds are really where we pull and develop a lot of our greatest gifts, right? Because we're able to help people through things that we've really struggled with. And if someone's really being challenged by something, you probably don't have that much to learn from someone who's never been challenged by that thing. So, there's so much gold and strength and value that can come out of the things that we have really been challenged by in life. And I think looking at our astrology charts and understanding that about ourselves is really, really empowering. Especially, I love Chiron as a point to look at, because in studying all of the different placements, it made me realize that everyone has a Chiron placement. Everyone has that Achilles heel and that area of their life that they just keep falling flat on their face around, or they have a deep wound around, or there's just always another level of challenge for them. And yeah, it just makes you, get out of that victim mindset of like, oh, this is so hard for me. Why me? And to be like, you know what, this is just my thing and I'm going to learn to deal with it. Everybody has their thing.
Do you see a correlation then with the healers that you work with, where their Chiron is and the type of healing that they do?
Yeah, I mean, a surprising amount of clients that I see have Chiron in Taurus, which is the wound of loss. And so that can show up around, fear of losing like emotional connection and stability or family or relationships or love, or it can be fear of loss around money. It's usually around stability and worth. Obviously, Taurus is ruler of the second house, which is all about money and worth. So it's really about not feeling safe. And I feel like, that's a very common thread when we go to see a healer or we want to help with something. It's because we don't feel safe around something. And so, healers have often been through great challenges of loss and hurt and, having to figure things out on their own or like reinvent the wheel. And so, yeah, I'm surprised how many people come to me with a Chiron in Taurus, and I have Chiron in Gemini, excuse me, which is the wound of words. So, kind of feeling like the black sheep, not being seen, not being recognized, or, excuse me, not being accepted. And obviously, that's the main thing that I help people with. Like, my background is in copywriting, so I help people tell their stories and market their offers and put themselves out there and grow their brand and get more visible to find more clients. And so, that resonates with a lot of people who are similar to me as well. But, every Chiron placement has its own unique flavor. And have clients with all of them. And I think they're all so interesting. And my clients really do feel very empowered when they come to understand that part of their chart.
Yeah, cool. I'm surprised, but not surprised, you know. Well, today, what I should start with is Gemini season is here. And I'm excited. I'm a Gemini, sun in Gemini, moon in Gemini, and it's my 60th birthday this year. So this is a
Birthday.
really powerful Gemini season for me. And today we're talking about making more money in Gemini season, how we can use this season to do that. So do you kind of want to give us some ideas how to do that?
Yeah, I love that you have so much Gemini energy. And you know what, Gemini, before I started studying astrology, it was the sign that I really struggled to get my head around. And I think because there is so much duality, it's like both and it's like everything and nothing, it's very changeable and that mutable energy. And my husband is a Gemini, and he was the first Gemini really that came into my life. And it wasn't until I started studying my astrology chart that I discovered I have a lot of placements in Gemini, and they're in my 10th house, which makes sense because, I help people with storytelling and, being creative and communication and social media, which is all very much Gemini energy. So when it comes to making money, the main things that I want to share. Okay, number one, if you want to make more money in Gemini season and to really harness this energy, it's a very potent energy for communication. And I've worked with so many people. I've helped so many people to have breakthroughs around making more money in the ways that they want to, in alignment with their values. And I really, truly, and deeply believe that the number one skill to making more money is for asking for what you want. And I think this is such a great, little dare and exercise for you to play with and tap into in Gemini season to practice asking for what you want. And, particularly women and minority groups who tend to have like lower pay grades than, white men in the patriarchal system that we live in. So often, like so many clients that I've worked with, it's just been a case of challenging them to go and ask for more, ask for an uncomfortable amount, because very often we're not receiving, our market value. And obviously, like employers or clients, like they're not going to complain about that. They're not going to be like, oh, no, let me pay you more. So if we want to increase our income, we have to be the ones to take a stand for that and to kind of test the boundaries around that and to find ways, obviously of being really clear about the value that we're offering in exchange and, making sure that we're in right relationship for what we're asking for, but knowing that so many people really lowball themselves, and they could be making more money no matter if you're in a salaried career for another company or if you have your own business and you're choosing your own rates, but to just, test the waters and double it. So often I've told my clients, go and double what you're asking for. And it can feel really, really, really uncomfortable. And our nervous system can tell us, oh, it's not safe to ask for more money. I'm going to get rejected. I'll be criticized. Maybe I'll lose an opportunity. But you have to test that for yourself. You don't know until you try, right? So I think Gemini is really a great energy of experimentation and trying and seeing, and there is no right, there is no wrong, and we have to be willing to fail forward and to make mistakes and to try different things if we want to create different results. So that's the first one.
Yeah, that's really good. I over my career, I was in the mortgage industry for, 3 decades, and I hired hundreds of people. And it was so interesting because the women would ask, when they would ask for salary, they'd be like, "Is it okay if I get this?" And the men, and I'm generalizing, of course, and the men would be like, "Of course I'm going to get this." It was like dramatically different, almost twice the amount. And I was always shocked at that, we just don't ask for what we're worth. We're not brought up that way. We're not used to doing that. So I love that Gemini season is a time for us to practice that.
Yeah, I love that you have like all of that data and really seeing it at work. And I really do believe that women asking for more is going to be the thing. It's the skill that's needed to close the wage gap. And okay, so my next one is being willing to experiment. And, I think this is another really valuable thing about Gemini energy is it's both and. So just to remember, I think so often we put ourselves under so much pressure to do the right thing, and we miss out on a lot of opportunities because we put so much pressure on our decisions. And this is something I think having Gemini in my 10th house is really the reason why I've been so successful in business, is because it comes quite naturally to me to be in the energy of experimentation. And even before, when my background is in film and I worked in film production, I used to make short films. I was really into experimental cinema. And I just love that whole ethos and that whole approach to life, that life is one giant experiment. And I think very often we're fed beliefs that there is a right way to do things. Like you go through school, you get the right answers on the test, you get to the next grade, then you go to high school, then you go to university, then you get your job, then you get a raise and you go up to manager and you go up to CEO or whatever, right? There's a lot of illusion in our world that there's a set hierarchical step-by-step A, B, C way to get to something, and there really isn't. And I think, the more life experience you get, the more changes you go through, you really see that everyone's just winging it. Everyone's figuring it out as we go along. And sometimes we luck out. And I really do believe in creating our own luck. And the way that we create our own luck is by being willing to try all the things until we get the result that we want. And, and it doesn't mean completely burning everything down and starting from scratch over again. Sometimes it's really just making small tweaks, like bringing that scientific experimentation attitude where you're like, okay, look at what has worked well for me. Like what feels good? What is making me money? What do I enjoy? What skills do I already have? And what's a different perspective that I could bring in? What's one thing that I could do slightly differently? Like our first example, maybe I could try asking for a raise. Like that's a very simple change that we could try that can, have the potential to bring in considerably like a lot more money. If you ask for a raise now instead of in 5 years' time, how much money is that over the next 5 years? Or, maybe doing some networking, like branching out, meeting some new people that you haven't met before. Again, Gemini, communication, like being in relationship. And maybe it's just the ways that we're working, the systems and the processes that we use, our habits, looking for those small changes and those small upgrades, because that's really how I doubled my income twice in over a 3-year period, was by having my income goal. I put it on a post-it note on my laptop where I looked at it every day. And I just tried different things until I got to that income goal. You know, I had no business training when I became an entrepreneur. I took a bunch of courses to learn copywriting as I actually started out as an editor. And when I was on Fiverr, which is the freelance website that I was getting clients, I saw a lot of other people selling copywriting gigs. Clients would approach me and be like, hey, can you help me with my copy for, you know, this brochure or for my website? And I just started figuring it out as I went along, one client after another. And you know, that's how I discovered I was really good at it, and I was really good at copywriting, and I just started getting more and more clients, and I started bumping my price up little by little by little, and you know, started paying attention to, oh, here are the things that come really easily to me, here are the things that don't. So I'll just drop the things that take more time, and I'll focus more on the things that I'm better at, and just making those small incremental shifts and tweaks and thinking, okay, well, I want to be earning considerably more money. What skills do I need to learn? I need to learn how to, you know, package and sell offers instead of working for an hourly rate. Oh, then I'll start my own business and hire other writers. And I, you know, and I launched my copywriting agency. So I never had a business plan. Nobody ever taught me business. It really just unfolded one step at a time. And, you know, then I launched my coaching program and sell digital courses and coaching offers that are scalable and can reach many people. And I can earn a lot more money than I'm, you know, working for an hourly rate. And these are just things that I learned one tiny step at a time, one day at a time. And, you know, and I tried lots of things that didn't work out immediately. So it really is being willing to try and to keep trying and being willing to fail. And I think a lot of the reason why we hold ourselves back is because we fear rejection, because I think that's something that we've been taught to fear in school. You know, oh, it's bad if you fail an exam, like you're not as good as everybody else, so don't fail. So don't try anything unless you know you can succeed at it. But the truth is, the only way you're going to get good at new things is if you're willing to suck at it and to, you know, fail at it several times before you get good at it. So yeah, that's my number two. Really just challenge yourself, you know, get a little bit outside your comfort zone. You don't have to do anything crazy, but just take small steps in different directions and see what unfolds for you.
I think that's such good advice. It's also good advice to find out what it is that you like, because you could tweak something and be making a lot of money in it and realize, I hate this. I'd rather do anything else than this. And but you don't know that until you get in there and you try it. Being a Gemini, like I've been in business now doing this for 5 years, I've tried so many different things because I know there's no failure. It's just me figuring out what's my sweet spot. Where can I make great money and that I love doing? And that could be one thing for a while. And then, you know, okay, been there, done that, and let me switch up to something else. Mm-hmm. Really
Yeah,
good advice. Mm-hmm.
yeah, we have to give ourselves room to evolve, like you say, you know, it's like maybe you do something for a while and then you're like, this is kind of boring now. So, you
Yes.
know, and really,
Which is a lot of Gemini energy, you know, like, okay, been there, done that. Now the next thing. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And so I think it's really helpful to know, you know, what are my core skills? Like, what are my gifts? What are the things that I'm just really good at and that come to me naturally or that I have a lot of training in? And sometimes, and I've definitely been through that myself, where I felt like I want to burn everything to the ground and kind of start from scratch again, when actually all it took was, oh, if I just add this extra thing in or take this one thing away, it suddenly becomes so much more fun for me. And I don't have to start a whole new career, you know, like adding in astrology. I've been teaching copywriting and messaging to entrepreneurs for so many years. And I was like, I feel like I'm really in my stride here where I know what my message is. I know what works. I know what I'm really good at. I know how to help people get results. I have a proven track record. Am I just going to do this forever? And then, you know, I'm like, oh, that doesn't feel fun. And then astrology came in. I'm like, oh, now I get this whole other dimension that I can bring in that, you know, brings me even more depth and skill and capacity to help people. And I'm still, you know, benefiting from all the work that I've put in over the years and all of that knowledge that, you know, I really get to help a lot of people with.
Well, and just talking to you, you can tell that you're lit up about it. and those are the types of people that we're drawn to. We're drawn to your energy and how excited you are about it. Copywriting, maybe, whatever. But with astrology, yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people feel the same too. And it's yeah, exactly like you say, if you're excited about something, you're going to attract people that are also excited about that, and it's going to be fun for both of you.
Agreed. Now, we have talked before about money hygiene. Can you just share a little bit about that? Because I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, so I had to work really, really, really hard to have a good relationship with money. I was just never, I always wanted to have a lot of money. I grew up in a town where there was a really posh boys' boarding school where, people who had the most money in the whole world would fly their children in, and they had a big chapel and beautiful grounds and amazing theater. And I went to a local grammar school, which sometimes we would go and use their facilities. And, you know, I could see what it was like for people who like went on international holidays and, flew off for nice vacations and wore designer labels. And, growing up just southeast of London, where you just, no matter how much money you have, you feel like you are never going to be as rich as the king and the queen. It's like you just don't feel rich because there's always so much more money. There's palaces and all of these big stately homes and castles. And so, I wanted it. I wanted to have money. I wanted to have a pool in my house. I wanted to go on a vacation on a plane to somewhere where it was sunny. But at the same time, I had no financial skills. I pretty much said yes to any debit or credit card that was thrown at me when I was a student. I built up quite a lot of debt, and I traveled a lot. And I just really, I did whatever I wanted, but I didn't, I racked up quite a lot of debt, and I didn't have those financial skills. And so I had a lot of anxiety about it. And I emigrated to Canada, and I was in a lot of debt in the UK. And then I studied my master's in Canada, which I got a grant for, but still, I had to cover my living costs. And so I started building up some debt in Canada. And then I was running my business. And you have to have financial organization when you're a solopreneur, and you have to file your taxes. And I didn't file my taxes for 3 years. And I got to this place where I was so overwhelmed and I was so avoidant, and I just had my head in the sand, and no one had taught me any skills. And, when it got to the place where I had to talk about money every day and like decide what my rates were and ask for money all the time, it really started to bring up a lot of those just insecurities around my lack of ability in my relationship with money. And so it got to the point where I actually attracted a lot of coaches as clients. And I discovered the world of money mindset. I was like, what is this money mindset? I joined a business coaching program, and the coach started teaching about mindset. And, whatever story you tell yourself is usually what you're going to create. And particularly when it comes to business and money. And I remember one of the first lessons that really stuck in my head was confidence is a choice, and recognizing that the way we act in the world, influences the results that we create. And what determines that is the beliefs that we choose, and that the beliefs that we have are a choice. And so I was like, okay, I'm paying attention. Clearly, I need some help with this whole money thing. So I started a daily mindset practice, and I hired a money coach and started looking at my numbers, and it was very challenging for me. And it brought, just every time I sat down to look at my numbers, I felt really overwhelmed. I felt really insecure. I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like it was way too much for me to handle. I also had an ADHD diagnosis, so I really struggle with a lot of admin, like boring, spreadsheet type tasks. And I just came to the realization that like money is like anything else. If you want to be good at it, you have to build a skill around it. And to build a skill around it, you have to practice. You have to practice every day. And so I find it really helpful to compare it to something like brushing your teeth. It's a skill that we learn when we're very, very, very young. I'm sure when we first started to like pick up a toothbrush, when we had our little baby hands, it was really hard, and it probably felt really uncomfortable and overwhelming and probably really gross, and we hated doing it. But, we had somebody there to guide us and be like, no, we're going to do this every day. You have to clean your teeth every day. And we learned that skill. And as we get older, that's something that we do naturally. And you don't brush your teeth on Monday and expect to have nice breath on Friday. You know, it's something that we understand. If you want to maintain a certain standard, it requires that consistent habit. And we don't think about it. We don't need to talk about it, right? But money is one of those things that it is a cultural taboo. You know, in the Bible, there's a lot of languaging around money that's been used to make us feel like, oh, we shouldn't be greedy, right? Or money is the root of all evil. A lot of these quotes that you hear around that have kind of associated shame with money. And culturally, this is very true. You know, sometimes people feel very uncomfortable talking about money, and it's been seen as, you know, not something that we do. And so how can we possibly expect to be good at something that we don't talk about? And, you know, we talk about like money is something that we need in our culture. I mean, unless you live in a tree house in the woods and you grow all of your own food, you need money to sustain life. And just like food, like we talk about food all the time because it's so important, right? It's like, what are we going to have for breakfast? What do you want for lunch? Do you want some sauce with that? You know, how was your meal? Like we're culturally, we talk about this thing so often because it's so vital to sustaining our life. And yet, why are we not talking about money? And so there's a lot of shame and discomfort that comes up in that initial process, but we have to move through that if we want to have more abundance and freedom in our relationship with money. And, you know, just developing a money hygiene practice, which to me, you know, I think one of the most important things we can do is look at our beliefs. You know, obviously our beliefs determine our actions. So just writing down, what are my thoughts around money? Because a lot of the time we have anxiety, you know, especially now in 2024 when like, you know, a small old house in my neighborhood in LA is like 1.8 million. You know, it's like we're in a very different time to previous generations when it comes, you know, I feel like I live a luxurious life because I can buy all the groceries that I want right now. You know, there's a lot of people who are struggling. And so it can create so much anxiety and so much tension. It's like the number one reason that people get divorced. You know, it really impacts our life. So why aren't we talking about it more? So we have to start with ourselves. What are my thoughts? And just getting them out instead of ruminating on them or trying to avoid them or suppress them, looking at the thoughts. And then we have power over them and we can look at, okay, what's a better thought? If you're thinking like, I'm so worried, I'm not going to have enough money to retire. I'm not going to be able to pay, you know, buy the house I want. I'm not going to be able to go on the vacation that I want. I'm not going to be able to, you know, buy groceries for my family this week, or I'm not going to be able to buy a gift. You know, instead of these worries that tend to come up, like getting them out on paper and choosing a better thought. You know, what if I have everything that I need right now? What if I trust that everything I need is available to me? And I have the power to create, you know, money is a constantly renewing resource. There's always an opportunity for me to bring in more money. I'm willing to get creative and to do things differently so that I can increase my income. Like, you know, maybe if you're like, I'm bad at saving or investing, flip the story on that. Like, I'm now focusing on becoming a good saver. I'm now focusing on building for my future and really shifting your focus and doing it in a way that just makes you feel good, right? It has to be a story that makes you feel open and like there's hope and possibility, because then we'll shift out of avoidance and we're much more likely to feel empowered to take a different action or to try something new. And, you know, so there's the mindset part of things. And then the other part is, you know, actually taking care of it. Anything that you want to have a healthy relationship with, you have to be in communication on a regular basis. You don't just, you know, complain, oh, I don't have enough money, I wish I had more money. You know, it's like be in communication with that. Look at your bank account, look at your numbers, look at the things that you want in life. What's the dollar cost of those? Look at how much you're bringing in, look at how much you're saving, and really practice. And, you know, and it took me a long time before I could look at my numbers and not feel anxious. So it's okay to know that that's a part of the process. It's so much better for me to be in conversation and not feeling good than avoiding the conversation. And, you know, being able to just be in the discomfort and breathe through it and try to come to a place of neutrality. So we're not freaking out, we're not avoiding, we're not giving our power away to the amount of money we do or don't have. And, you know, from that place, it just naturally leads to more empowered decisions, and you start to think about ways that you could be like, oh, I'm going to cancel that subscription, or I'm going to say no to that event this month. And you start to make more empowered decisions that lead you to a financial place that's, supportive of the lifestyle that you really want.
Yeah, and I like how you're approaching it as hygiene because I think that there is this belief that once you get through a limiting belief, once you've conquered that limiting belief of whatever it may be around money, that you're done. Okay, I can just go back to my old ways and I'm good now. And it's not. A money mindset is something you have your entire life. And I can tell when my bank account goes up and down, when my bank account goes down, there's something that the universe or I or whatever is not paying attention to. It's an opportunity for me to like relook at things. Okay, where am I now? What's my limiting belief now? Why is the bank account going down now? What's going on? And it is something that we need to do for the rest of our life, like brushing our teeth. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Unless you want all your teeth to fall out or you want your money to run out, I
Yeah,
suggest you
exactly.
don't stop looking at
Don't
it.
stop. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you have generously offered a free creative money meditation. Can you tell us just a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, like I said, in my early stages of replenishing my relationship with money or establishing a healthy relationship with money, I was just every day writing down my worries and my limiting beliefs in my relationship with money, and I was rewriting them. And I basically pulled some of the main ones that really changed things for me and just created that openness and connected me to possibility and to optimism and to excitement and belief in myself to be able to create money in the ways that I wanted to create money. And I put them in a meditation. So that's my free offering because it's really, really, really important. I think it's 90% of our thoughts are repeated from the day before. And a lot of our repeated thoughts we inherited from our parents, and they inherited them from our grandparents. And so we're kind of running on this operating system from previous generations, but yet we live in a time where, hopefully for a lot of us, we're not in as much food scarcity as maybe our grandparents were in a war situation. Although I know, that there is still a lot of that in many places in the world. But it's different now. We do have more opportunities. We have access to technology. We have access to education for free, on our devices. And we have a lot of possibility to create abundance and connection and community that previous generations didn't. So we require a new operating system to be able to take advantage of that and to, see opportunities. And it's the new belief systems that really open us up to these new opportunities. So because so many of our thoughts are repeated, we have to take that approach with our new beliefs. We have to repeat, 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 repeat. So listen to it daily. I would always make these like money affirmation meditations for myself, and I would listen to them every day. And what I would notice is, maybe I would have a little resistance around some of them, or my mind would be like, oh, but that's really not true for you today, or it just, yeah, I would feel resistance. But over time, that seed was planted, and then I kept watering that seed and it took root and they become new neural pathways. And I would start to see evidence that all of these beliefs had taken root and that they were actually coming to fruition in my life. And I would, I would notice actually making money is so much easier for me now. Making money is so much more fun for me now. Oh, I actually am much better at saving than I was before. And as you start to gather that new evidence, that's when these new ways of being have really started to take root and they become more natural. And that's really, when we've built a higher level of skill in our relationship to money. So it's really important to repeat these thoughts. So that's what this meditation can help you with. Listen to it on repeat in the morning, when you're sleeping, when you're brushing your teeth, it doesn't matter when, but have it on every day and really, allow those new beliefs to take root in your unconscious.
Well, and that's part of our daily money hygiene.
Exactly.
This is like you're brushing your teeth, listening to this. Exactly.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
will put a link to that in the show notes. Also, a link to your website with sarahmac.com. I love what you're doing with using astrology in such this brilliant way to help people make more money and get their authentic message out there. It's really fabulous. Also, just a reminder, you are the host of the Creative Magic Club podcast too, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes too. So thank you so much for joining me today. It was really interesting stuff.
Thank you so much for having me. And I also just want to remind everyone that I have a book coming out which shares all of the tools that helped me get to my first six-figure year and really all of the work that I did to transform my identity around money. I'm hopefully publishing it this year. So please keep an eye out for that
Well,
one.
keep an eye out. When it comes out, let me know and I'll make sure that I post it.
I
So
will. Thank you so much.
thank you so much for joining me today, Sarah. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will talk to you again sometime soon.